tests. I want to eliminate, I don't want to have two variables in my numbers. I'd like to see.
Yeah, but if you have an outbreak, you're going to have more tests.
Sure.
So you can't really have a constant number of tests. Hi, Cindy.
Todd, you're back. I didn't know if that was a permanent move or what.
No, I don't know what that was.
We were wondering if you requested to move away.
It had nothing to do with, I actually went and sat down at the wrong seat last week, just assuming.
You had her preference. They really took that seriously, didn't they?
Yeah. Yep. Bob, are you coming tomorrow for lunch?
You bet.
Okay.
Looking forward to it. It's been a long time, hasn't it?
Larry Testa, I got about 2 emails a week from him for a couple of weeks. Hey, what's the plan? What's the plan? And it's like,
Yeah.
I'll keep pushing it forward to John and see if we can get something arranged. So.
What do you think the estimated head count is?
My mom had asked me
Yeah.
that. I think it'll be around that 30 again.
Lots of room.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
Cool.
I call to order the Monday, August 31st special meeting of the River Falls Board of Education. This meeting has been properly notified. Are there any visitors or delegations who would like to address the board this evening? All right, then we are going to move into informational items. And the first one is an update about the Wildcat World Map.
So we leave this on our agenda each and every time that we get together as a board in the event that there are any added revisions or changes to the existing Wildcat roadmap. And right now we don't have anything specific to bring to your attention.
Okay. B, we were scheduled to do a presentation about the curriculum and programming at our virtual e-school. When I announced and promised that, I was being overly ambitious that this would be a good time for Jennifer and her staff to be able to do it. So the delay, we are not going to have that tonight. The delay is my fault because they've really been working on getting ready for students and preparing for orientation. So it's going to work much better for our e-school teachers to give the presentation on September 21st. So that's when we can look forward to that. And now we will move to letter C, our students representative reports, and Taylor.
Hi. So school hasn't started yet. Tomorrow is the big first day. So that's pretty much, I know what's on a lot of students' mind. Student council, I know, has been doing things, getting prepared for the students to come back, the whole school as a whole, and just really being aware of everyone's concerns. So it's going to be exciting to see, and I will definitely have more to report once school is back in session.
Okay. Are you an AA or a BB student?
I'm a BB student.
Yeah,
Yeah.
student. Okay.
So I'm Thursday for my
Okay.
first day. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to be very anxious to hear.
Yes.
All right. We will move into action items, and the first one, Mr. Benson, is there anything that the administration brings to the school board that we should be considering in terms of a potential shift to the learning environment and related programs, including?
No recommendation for a change, but just to recap some of the things. Aaron, are you able to pull up that? Just to, rather than to say, no changes, just thought maybe we could talk a little bit about a couple of things that make this a complicated affair in determining if and when we would shift from a different learning environment and or make a different decision related to sports and other co-curricular activities. And so, we've talked before about the county, the Department of Health Services, DHS. They have two things that they've told us for sure that would shut us down, and that's related to their ability to do contact tracing. Obviously, that's pretty critical. If they cannot do that could lead to an escalation in more cases, because contact tracing leads to exclusion and having people isolate themselves to avoid spreading to others. And the other is this burden, sorry, Aaron, I threw this at her kind of at the last minute here. But I described this a little bit on a slide, and so I'll go to my crutch here. So this is just a couple of short slides real quick about the monitoring of regional COVID impact and the process for determining and our learning environment and so on. So here's what the DHS has told us, that under scenario 2 that I was just talking about here, or scenario B, their inability to do contact tracing, and then there's this other burden, which is a formula used measuring the case rate over a 2-week period. And so right now, when asked about what the recommendation is here, to know we are not suggesting that we deviate from our hybrid plan. I just listed a couple of things on this slide to say Pierce County's current 2-week case rate burden is 110. And again, on that last slide, they said it'll shut us down if we get to that level, 350. Other factors obviously would include the ability for public health staff, their ability to contact all newly identified cases, public health's ability to identify any of the close contacts, people that were within close contact of those newly identified cases. And again, obviously, the healthcare and public health capacity, health services, clinics, hospitals, and so on, enters into all of these decisions. I won't get into the detail of these 2 dashboards, but there are, and we've talked about this before, there are the 2 dashboards that provide tons of information, statistical information related to COVID and the condition of COVID spread on those 2 dashboards for each county. This is an example of the Pierce County dashboard. There's actually 4 pages. This is just 1 page. And so I wrote down a couple of side notes that this one is the number of new confirmed and probable cases. And when you read the fine print down here, it describes what does that mean when we say probable. And this graph over here talks about active cases per week. And so again, I just penciled in the numbers over the last 3 weeks in each of these grids, each of these tables, graphs. This is the dashboard for St. Croix County. They're obviously very different. On the bottom right, this particular one here gives you a menu. There's some choices. And again, I added these dates just to show July 1 and end of July and end of August, like I cut off. I think that's 28th or 9th. Again, that particular table, this one on the bottom, find my pointer. That's the number of new cases each day. And again, there's a tab on the bottom that you could pick, and you can break that data out differently. Both dashboards have similar information. Both dashboards have some of the same information, but they are a little bit different. We've talked in this room about the Minnesota model, and we've always been careful to say that this is not to be used Sorry about the interruption.
Is that the doorbell?
So the Minnesota model is not to be used. It's not our sole determining factor. I find it interesting. But again, it's not the sole determining factor. And Mike, I added this too. I know you were pointing some things out. I don't know if you want to get into the detail of this particular model, but basically you take the number of the active cases that are put into this formula, and then you apply it over here Minnesota has suggested, the state of Minnesota has suggested, they haven't mandated it, but they've suggested to school districts that they would employ this kind of a model using these formulas. So in our case, we have a 2-county region, we have 2 different sets of county data. And currently, you can see that we would fall in this range here. Really, just to kind of back up, there's lots of information to look at. It's not just one model. There's tons of information. For us, again, we know that right now, that burden case does not cause the county to shut us down, nor does it, they still are able to stay on top of contact tracing. And so with our recommendation tonight, we're not recommending any change from the hybrid. I also wanted to provide the board, and we'll try to do this regularly to give you an idea. So those are regional. I call it regional, 2-county area, those regional dashboards. So to bring that regional data to home, I can tell you that right now, as of today, we have 7 students that we're aware of that have tested positive for COVID, and we have 15 students that have been, that are considered close contacts. We also have 2 staff members that have tested positive and 2 additional staff members considered close contacts. And so as you look at the regional data from the 2-county area, I thought it would also be relevant and transparent to describe to the board where we are at, what we know today before school started, where we're at with our staff and our students.
Can I make a comment? Thank you, Jamie, for that information. That's very helpful. Just one comment on that model. That came from a Harvard study, and I think it's a good concept. I guess my suggestion that you were alluding to is simply that we should probably consult with A.Z. Snyder around those thresholds. That's all. The 50 and those different ranges of numbers that would trigger action. And I only say that because the study from Harvard actually had a hard stay-at-home order recommended at 25 rather than 50. So, and again, there's variables that they were probably looking at that are different from ours. So, but
yeah, I saw that
yeah.
In a little bit of research, since I was conversing with Mike about this Harvard model, just a little bit of research. When I looked into that, I was intrigued to see the same thing. They have these 4 levels. Green, you're in good shape. What is
Yellow.
it? Yellow is a community spread. Orange is worse than community spread, and then red. So it goes through those criteria, and the numbers in the Harvard study do not exactly align with
right. What Minnesota chose
close,
to use as thresholds.
They're not exact, and I noted that as well. So we'll follow up with her on that again. We've been careful to say that model alone is not steering our decision, but it's an interesting lens to look at this very challenging decision through. So we put it on the board every time we talk about these dashboards and the way in which we're looking at it. And moving forward now, we're going to continue to report to the board what we know about our local school numbers as well.
When we talk about at what point the thresholds that would, what you're suggesting is that would cause us to pivot to totally online learning, not face-to-face, that sort of thing. I'm assuming that we think about sports here. Do we see a scenario where we would do one without the other? Do we see a scenario where we would totally online learning but still allow sports to continue? Or not allow sports to continue, but allow our current hybrid and face-to-face arrangement go? In other words, I don't want to lock us too tightly there, but I'm assuming that we're pretty close to things, right?
Yeah, my opinion would be, and we've had some of this conversation with our task force, but I think that we'd be pretty hard pressed to say that we're worried enough about COVID that we can't have kids come to school, but we're gonna roll out the ball at 3:30 and get on with business there. I think that'd be a tough sell for me, and I would imagine for the board as well as the community. And so, no to that.
So these guidelines apply to sports too, is my, it's not just instruction, it's extracurricular activities.
Yeah, I actually think the practical potential reality is what will govern that more than those guidelines. If we have an outbreak on a sports team that causes too many people to be quarantined, including coaches, that's probably going to make it hard for them to keep playing. I mean, that kind of thing I think is more likely than these quantifying based on these guidelines.
And to that is also a condition that we've always noted as well within our own staff and our own logistical operations. Might we get to a point where we're saying whether the numbers have surpassed whatever lens we want to look through it, one of the lenses is going to be our ability to employ enough people to, run the place safely and to educate kids properly and so on. And that's a very real possibility as well.
Can I ask?
Staffing.
I didn't catch it. If you said it, Jamie, I apologize. It was 7 students and 15 exposed,
So 22 total students. I didn't say that number, but it's 22 total. Of the 22, 15 are close contacts.
Yeah.
And the other 7 have tested positive.
Okay. So first question is, give me a time frame of is that in the last couple days, or I didn't catch if you had said, is that known over the course of the last month, or is that starting school tomorrow? That's where we sit with it currently.
That's where we sit currently. Those numbers would be, to the best of my knowledge, they would be from the first I heard any student numbers was last Thursday, and through today. So the number went from 10 close contacts. And remember, let's not mistakenly make any assumption that when we're categorizing, here's the data about our students and here's the data about our staff, let's not mistakenly assume that when we say close contacts, that there were 15 students that are not able to start school tomorrow because they were a close contact. It doesn't mean that they were a close contact of a student. It means they were a close contact, could be their parent. In fact, in many cases, that is the case, is that this isn't about a student to student. It doesn't matter the origin. It's that, we're right now at 22 total students that have been affected by this within the last, I think it's since Thursday, that these numbers have gone from 10 to 22.
Okay. So then the other question that I have, and I'm not sure if this is answered completely, but say those kids range from the date that they had expected contact, say it was last Thursday for one of them. Just talk me through the example of what that person would then be expected to do before they come back to school. I've had a lot of people asking me, but what's the procedural way we're handling this? So now that it's actually the school day tomorrow, and
the infamous flow chart. We just, Aaron, I think you got that linked in last week, didn't you? Late last week, Thursday, Friday. So this is new guidance. This Wednesday it will be out for 2 weeks. But the significance of how this exclusion works, how you exclude people, is that if you have had that exposure to someone who tested positive, you need to be excluded for 10 days. You need to stay at home for 10 days. And then even beyond that, you should have 24 hours of symptom-free, no fever, no other symptoms, obviously.
Yeah.
That would even go beyond the 10. The thing for parents to know, and this is one of the things that Raleigh here,
He's over here somewhere, yeah.
you know, we had talked with AZ Snyder, director at DHS, about our mitigation plans for fall sports. And she had received those plans prior to last week's board meeting. And since last week's board meeting, over the weekend, as recent as this weekend, Raleigh has had some conversation with her saying, okay, so here's all our mitigation plans. Now that the board last Monday decided to go ahead with all fall sports, AZ, can you give us any recommendations, improvements for those mitigation efforts and so on? And one of the premier things that she wanted us to emphasize, which I'm doing now, is to help people understand that household members, if you are in close contact, then there's going to be the stay-at-home provision for 14 days. And that's where, you know, people need to understand what this new guidance that came out 2 weeks ago, that is different than what it was prior to 2 weeks ago. I think we all understand the why of it, why this is. It's the methods that are needed to stop people who may be asymptomatic, not showing symptoms, to continue to go to work and engage in the community and so on, while unknowingly spreading the virus to others. And so that was one thing, Raleigh, and we're kind of jumping around a little bit here, but I was reminded of that piece because of Todd's question.
Want me to go through the rest of them?
Yeah, anything else that
Yeah,
Can I
Is
ask
it
one
very-
clarifying question though about that? What if somebody, they were in close contact with somebody, who tested positive, but they themselves went and got tested and were negative?
Well, one of the things with the testing is that the science and the medical field tell us, number one, that if you were exposed yesterday to someone who had COVID and today you went then to get yourself tested, you may show a false negative. It may say, no, you don't have COVID, don't worry about it. That it's literally, according to the medical professionals, it's closer to the 12th day when your body would be revealing the most symptoms. And that I'm not going to suggest that you have to wait 12 days for any test to be accurate, but there's some disparity between if you go and get tested the day after you had contact with somebody with COVID, it might not show that you have contracted that virus yet or not, when in fact, maybe in 6, 7, 8, or 12 days, you'll be feeling pretty rotten.
Well, and can I add one more thing? Even if you are asymptomatic, it may take that long for that virus to just do its thing in your body, even if it doesn't create symptoms in any given individual.
Hence,
It'd still be there and you'd be contagious. Yeah.
hence the 14-day.
That's why they changed from 10 to 14. Because before it was 10 days.
They're saying household. So let me try to clarify, and I appreciate everyone understanding that we're trying to memorize
Yeah.
all of this. And so the 14-day piece has to do with household members. Naturally, I see the connection there. They're assuming that someone who was in your household had COVID. The likelihood of you contracting that virus is much more likely than if you were at the ball game and you maybe were standing within 6 feet of somebody that tested positive. So they're even layering on this 14-day rule for household members, which is different from the first part of my answer to you, Todd, where I said the 10 days applies for anybody, anyone, household or not, non-household, that has been in contact with a test positive. Furthermore, the test positive piece, others in the room correct me if I'm wrong, but we're talking about symptoms. We're talking about a student is at school, they are sent home because of this new guidance provides tier 1 symptoms, fever and a cough would fall into like tier 1. And then there's tier 2 symptoms. And if you have 2 of the tier 2 symptoms and are sent home, then this contact tracing, this 10-day piece applies to those that, in our case, for our school operations would be, were you within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more, and so on. If so, 10 days, 10 days, plus the 24 symptom-free piece.
We probably want to clarify that those guidelines did not originate with us, but that it is our responsibility to implement them.
Yeah, these guidelines were created by the state DHS, and our intentions in our district is to follow this plan. And so when I was asking Erin if she did load this, what I was referring to there is our Wildcat World Map, that this is located in there for anyone to locate, to read it for your own.
And Jamie, just to, and it goes without saying, but when you say 10 days or 14 days, those are calendar days, not school days.
Yes, they are calendar days.
Just before we get to Raleigh's presentation, I had one comment when we were talking about sports continuing. I think it would be wise for us to have a pretty narrow tolerance for any outbreaks on a sports team. And so that we end sooner rather than later in an effort to protect other people and in an effort to protect academics. So I would hope that becomes our guideline.
I have a question about that. How do we know who reports the students that have tested positive? Does the county report that to the school? And do we know if they're on sports teams, or do we know who the student is, or just that the number?
The clinic or hospital that does the testing notifies DHS, who in turn notifies us. About an hour and a half ago, I heard for the first time that there's at least one clinic that I won't name that apparently has been reported by the DHS for not revealing to the DHS when they have a test positive case. But the answer is supposed to be, when a clinic does a test, there's a positive, only in a positive, they notify the county, who in turn notifies us. Our role now is to help the county with contact tracing. They do all of the contact tracing. Our role in helping is simply to say, yep, Johnny or Billy or Sally is a 4th grader of ours. We have the seating chart. We know where Johnny or Billy or Sally was sitting. We will follow up with the teacher. We will do our very best to help you at the county know who else you as a county now need to notify as a close contact.
Got it. So we would know who the student is and what activities they're in. Because I know if you contact close contact, they don't tell you the name of the person.
Correct.
Okay.
HIPAA laws say that, that needs to be a protected piece of information. But in our case, we're going to need to know who tested positive for us to play our role in the contact tracing.
Okay. And if a student or staff tests in Woodbury, right? So a lot of people go across the border
You mean
for their
a s-
medical.
A student from here?
A student from here, say they test, they get a positive, they do their testing in Woodbury. Does that still get back to our county and get to us? So that's all interconnected, even across the state border.
Yes,
Okay,
it's supposed to,
okay,
yes.
got it.
Any other questions before we move on to Raleigh?
So again, I just thought that the little slide I did and some of this stuff, it all relates to the item on our agenda.
Mhm.
About, instead of just saying, no, no recommendation to change and leaving it at that, we're trying to provide some other information here. So Raleigh, what else do you know?
Yeah, this is just, I don't have any PowerPoint or anything this week.
No.
Just since we talked, as Jamie said, got back with Daisy, her and I had some communication. And then Saturday, she got back and I gave her that mitigation paper, 12-page thing that I gave to you last week. And she went through it and she just had some suggestions. All right. One of them, Jamie already said, is to make sure our parents and everybody understand this. All right. It's out there. Okay. It's on the websites or everything, but just to make sure that they understand, again, just to be transparent, we will send that out to them. As it is right now, when they sign up for activities, when they register online, there's a page that's just about COVID. And they have to acknowledge that they have read it. All right? I can't tell you whether they actually did or not, but they are acknowledging that they did. All right? Other things that she talked about, and they weren't really a lot of big ones. She questioned how we would distance kids in the locker room. We have a plan. We're actually not using the locker rooms very much at all. Probably just as a storage area for football equipment, if anything. Other kids, we're going to find other places for them to change. There's no showering or anything like that going on. They'll do that at home. Fogging up again. She prefer masks over gaiters for cross country or anything else because they're 2-ply. I did explain to her via email that we are looking for gaiters that are 2-ply. All right, not just the lightweight ones that a lot of people wear, which have been shown to be not really effective depending on where you read. And so we are looking for 2-ply gaiters. They do make them out there. We just need to have them, look like a team.
And as a district policy, whether for athletics or in school, we have also published our mask policy, and within it, we said, yes, we will allow gaiters, but they have to be 2-ply.
Okay. Let me see. Well, one thing, and I put it up as a slide last week. She wanted to know what our attempts are to get parents not to socialize before and after. I don't control that. I don't think anybody in here can really control that, other than we are highly suggesting it, asking, begging, whatever you want to say. I've sent it out on emails almost weekly that, we need everybody to be part of this. And this is the part that we're asking, is those nice tailgate parties. They're not going to happen on campus, but they could happen somewhere else. Shouldn't happen. The after game bonfires need to go away, where they have the whole team over. This just can't be part of the tradition anymore, at least until we get through this. All those things, those are the things she's concerned with, is congregating before and after. And again, we'll do our best. Again, we can't go to all these. That was really it. It was pretty, very few things. The biggest one was to let the parents know on the 14th day.
Todd,
Did we find out, I know when we left last Monday, it sounded like there were a number of other districts, and I think you were getting some correspondence, maybe even throughout the meeting, where things ended up? Have all the other districts?
Anybody
that
that
are-
voted on it last week are going ahead.
So really, we've heard the two Eau Claire schools are out. And then, just moving a little bit further outside the region, lacrosse area.
The lacrosse, the actual two from lacrosse.
Okay.
Central and Logan.
Okay.
The rest of them are giving it. a go.
So in regard to the sports we were talking about last week, soccer, volleyball, football, there would be, 5 schools in that conference other than?
We'll have 6 for football because New Richmond stayed in. They didn't go back to the middle border.
Okay,
How we went back to them,
Yep.
they decided to stay there for football.
Yep.
And then we'll have 5 schools for the other sports.
okay.
So we are staying in the conference here for football.
For this year, yep.
Well, I want to thank you for following up with AZ. I think we're really lucky to have a person like her has her training and engagement with us. And I'm just kind of thinking about Bob's comment last week too, about if she had all this information about mitigation, would she actually still support it?
Yeah, she
Just
had
wondered,
it
did you-
last week.
Did you ask her
She's a
that?
busy lady too.
Did you ask her that, if she still supports that decision and with all these mitigation efforts?
I think Jamie said it last week. She has concerns about it, even with the, but that she would support us.
Yeah, she'll
Her-
support us no matter
Position
what, I know.
has not changed
No.
from
Okay.
what we reported to you last week.
One other thing, what was the initial report? Was there cross-country, tennis, golf? What's the initial report on how those have gone off with matches or games and different things that they've done the first week or two?
Everything's a little bit different.
Okay,
Like cross country had a meet last Saturday.
Yep.
And they did it instead of all the kids at once. I think the seniors went and they didn't really keep team score. It was more of a run.
okay,
Tennis has been going well. I think we've split them up. Varsity one spot, JV another. Parents sign in when they come in, so we're taking attendance. We haven't had a swim meet yet. Golf had one meet up in Rice Lake that, the individual meets, I think, are going to be fine. Nothing's 100% sure except staying home.
sure,
But so far so good.
okay,
And I'm glad we've done it this way because we break into it.
sure. Get your feet wet a little bit.
I have 2 things really quick. One, I think Mike's point about that AZ knew the mitigation plan before making the recommendation not to go forward with sports. I think that's important to have on the table. And Stacy, your point about being tight on when we decide whether we should go forward with that or not. I think anytime we go against that recommendation, we need to be really, really tight. So I think that's one thing. And then my other question is, I hadn't heard a decision on spectators or other folks going to games. Do we know more about that?
That's still being discussed.
Okay, so we don't know yet.
Correct.
Big Rivers, we're talking this week again. As I think I said last week, we're trying to all get on the same page. And sometimes that's hard to do. So there's some give and take. Jamie's been involved with his group also on this.
Three options are, anybody and his brother can come to all these events. Nobody can come to watch the events, or middle of the road, you somehow find a way to limit. And AZ Snyder, the DHS would say that the limits should be 50 outdoor and 10 indoor. And so I don't know for sure how we would determine which of the 10 people would be allowed to come and watch a volleyball match indoors, nor would I know how we would determine which of the 50 people we would allow to come and watch an outdoor event. I think it's possible, although this will be a piece that needs to be brought before the school board, I think. I don't think that Raleigh and or Jamie should make that decision. I think the school board's going to need to make that decision as well. And we'll bring our recommendation back to you along that line, but those are the three scenarios. And I can tell you the one that definitely won't be a recommendation from us is that anybody and his brother can show up. So that narrows it down to two choices. And within one of those choices where I said the county is recommending no more than 50 at an outdoor event and 10 on an indoor event, I can tell you that there are other school districts that are debating whether or not they're going to follow the 50 and 10 rule or not.
And to be transparent, so far with tennis, which has been our only home thing, we have let the parents come.
Yeah,
Because it would be
yeah, thanks for
50.
pointing that out.
Yep.
It's a smaller crowd.
Yeah, it's a smaller crowd.
Outdoor, small
Yep.
crowd.
Outdoors.
Yeah,
I-
outdoors, it's a
Parent maybe
smaller
wouldn't
crowd.
watch their kid play golf.
I would
Now
also,
at Menominee for cross country on Saturday, they only allow home parents at theirs.
I think if we implement that language, we need to be careful of the language, Raleigh, because the term parent doesn't mean the same for all of our kids.
Yeah, when I say that, yeah, it's two, or, you know, sometimes it might be four.
Parent or guardian.
Depends on the parent.
So my hope would be, it would be in some way inclusive so that the kids who didn't have two parents or
Exactly.
whatever that is, I know typically we are, but I think it's important to say.
How many, if we went to that in the conference, talk is that each kid would get 2 tickets. All right,
So how many football players will be standing on our sideline on a Friday night?
we're trying to reduce that a little bit, but right now it'd be about 70.
70, well, let's cut it in half, let's call it 50 somehow, miraculously. 50 times 2, if I'm doing my math right,
100.
I think that's 100. So we now have doubled what the DHS is suggesting. So you get a flavor of the problem here. Are we gonna put names in a hat? Are we gonna run a lottery? How would we determine who gets to come to a game and watch is even deeper than 2 tickets per family.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna be,
Among the
Hold on.
soccer. oh,
Stacy, can you say what you're gonna say? I
Oh,
keep
sorry.
hearing your voice come up and people talking over. Go ahead.
this is going to be a very complicated decision for the board. And I would say 2 things about it. The first one is this is going to be the place where we are able to uphold AZ's recommendation about controlling the number of people or to not. I would hope that we are upholding it. That's the first thing. The second thing I will say is, as nice as it is for all of our districts to be on the same page about spectators, we are going, I hope, to make the right decision for us and our community regardless of what the other districts.
And that's the hold up right now is we're all different, but we all understand that. It's, at least as ADs and I'm sure superintendents also.
Among the 3 sports that we talked about last week, football, soccer, volleyball, when is the first game? Either home or away?
15.
September 15th?
And Raleigh, I think you told me we're trying to live stream our games,
Yes.
which is just like our board meetings. I mean,
That's a great
very
idea.
popular when you get yourself out there, but it's not the best option, but as long as we're live streaming them and we're serious about supporting the technology to do that.
We've
They've
done
already
it.
got that in place. It's really good.
Yeah,
Really good.
we've got the people that do it, and I hate to use them for the main sports. We've had them for volleyball, we've had them for football, Varsity Games. We haven't had them for the other sports. That's what we're working on right now. You have to have the technology. Sometimes there's 2 things going on at the same time. Right now, we have an opportunity to have it. It might not be exactly live streamed. It might be tape delayed. We also want to do the lower levels because it's just as important for that freshman team's parents to see their kids play. So we need somebody to film those games also. So TBD, we're working on it.
Maybe
If
one
the-
budget issue, but I think it's an important one.
Yeah.
If we let these kids play,
There's some sports that it doesn't work. I mean, you're not gonna tape a cross-country match or a golf match, or probably even a tennis match. There's just too much going.
But to be fair to that, I mean, I've got a decent handle on some of the sports. I mean, I think to Jamie's point about the 70 football players on the sideline for the varsity game, for a freshman football game, you're probably talking about 30-ish.
30 to 35.
And if you had 2 tickets, I mean, you could realistically get inside that 50 number for a freshman football game or something like that. I think you're probably talking about varsity volleyball, JV volleyball, maybe JV football, JV or varsity football, soccer possibly. But I mean, I've been to a lot of those events and I wouldn't say you're pushing over 50 people, but for 3 or 4 of them maybe,
Yeah,
especially outdoors.
it's, the thing I wouldn't want to do is be standing at the gate, counting them, and then,
Yeah.
nobody else gets to come in here.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is that we hold off on this conversation about spectators until we have a plan and we've been able to think through some options for us. When we get down to suggesting next meeting, I'll slot that in.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna mention.
When we talk about what what our guidelines are gonna be at home, at the same time, I would be curious if we can talk about if there are guidelines that we're gonna follow on the road. So if another school is coming in with a completely different philosophy, are we willing to send our kids and families to that?
Noted.
To that
So
game.
It's, what about our teams when we're at home and when we're away?
Yep.
Right. Got
Yep.
that down. So anything else, Riley? from
No,
you in
that was
terms of
all
the
that
updates
Daisy
about
had
this?
for
Okay,
concern.
all right. Then we'll move on to B, which, do we have any proposed or suggested items for future meeting agendas other than the things we've already talked about? We have the spectator issue, we have an update about e-school. The board is interested in an update about how hotspots are going for our students and what the options would be for our student who is not able to get that well enough at home or consistently enough. Are there other things from board members?
Yeah, have you talked to the city at all about partnering with them?
So that would come up under this agenda item. So a city partnership and hotspots.
At some point, we're gonna get an update on our fall enrollment with the breakdown.
So we'll get a third party count at some point.
Yeah, at some point, we should get that count, right?
Yeah, we get that. That's a normal standing agenda item. of course.
In this year, we might break that down as to what's the virtual online enrollment, and what's the Montessori enrollment, what's the Renaissance Academy enrollment.
We could easily take care of that. But
We usually get that, but I think that's good for us to.
when would that be a good
Early
time to do that?
October,
Early
I would say
October.
early October after third Friday count, and we know for sure would be a really good time for that.
Okay. Cindy, did I see your hand up?
Yep, I would be curious about regular attendance questions. So for our students and our staff, how many students are out on a regular basis? How many staff are out? I think that 14 days is really a game changer in being able to support those students that are out
Okay.
and the staff that are out. So I'd like regular updates on that.
So let's let Jamie keep track of which one of our Mondays is the best time to do that when he has enough data to be able to talk about that, okay? So as far as the next meetings, we do need to schedule a meeting for the first week of September. The 7th is Labor Day. My proposal is that we schedule something for Tuesday, September 8th. The reason being there will be a volleyball match and we need to have made a decision about spectators. And so it would be wise for us to get this underway so that conversation would include many of the questions we've asked already, including Cindy's point about home and away games. So does the September 8th work for people if we were to do that at 6 o'clock?
Yes.
Works for me.
Everybody, Alan, is that okay? Cindy, okay. All right, so that's how that is going to work. There will be another special Board of Education meeting on Monday, September 14th at 6. The regular board meeting will be Monday, September 21st at 6. The annual meeting will be September 21st at 8 o'clock. All of those meetings will be here unless you hear differently in the media center. And, yes.
We plan on meeting on the 28th.
Well, should we say yes for now and we can always change it?
Sure.
So we'll say yes for now and we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know
At
how
some
long
point, we're gonna start.
I love seeing you guys every week. And it's- get dressed up, but,
It feels like Mondays come twice a week.
I don't know. But anyway, I don't know how long, but if we gotta be here, we'll be.
Yeah, so we'll
Yeah.
put down the 28th at 6 as a placeholder and we'll see how that goes. So at this point, I request that we have a motion to move into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 1985-1G for the purpose of discussing strategy and or possible litigation. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. And Amy seconded. I need a roll call. Bob,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
Amy, I'm saying yes.
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Did you like it? That was pretty short. class.
Yeah, way to go.
All right, yeah.
Good luck tomorrow, everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, have a
Good luck
great
at
day
school.
tomorrow.
This is here.
Good luck at school.